once again we are back to the topic of collectors. And today we have Cezar, founding director of Delfina Foundation based in London. So Aaron initiated this fantastic project called Collecting as Practice, which invite collectors in residence. Residency program is usually kind of reserved for artists, and they will go there, practice the work, and produce their work. So what is your program about? Like, why would collectors need a residence?
It's a question I get all the time. Why collectors?
You have answered it many times. Give us something fresh.
Well, no. I mean, I think the really straightforward question is that within the ecosystem of the arts, you have artists and you have collectors at two ends of the spectrum.
Yes.
And often they don't meet, particularly in, let's say, a Western context. Because there's so many institutions, galleries, museum patron groups, auction houses that are in between the artist and the collector. So the residency, first and foremost, was to bring artists and collectors back together.
At the same time, so you have residence for artists and residence for collectors at the same time?
At the same time.
In the foundation?
The collectors are living in the house with the artists. So there are genuine conversations that can take place. I get asked this all the time too. Do the collectors really stay at the Claridge's? Or they're actually staying at Delfina? They are staying at Delfina. The important part of it is that at night, when I'm not there, they're having intimate, informal conversations that are not moderated. They are truly in residence. The other reason now, though, for the residency program was recognizing that collecting, for some, is a practice.
Yes.
It is an obsession. It is a very methodological approach to conserving, commissioning, and acquiring art.
It's a whole system as well, like different collectors have their different approaches.
Absolutely, and so we try to reflect that within a program. So Hara Kabuzian, for example, who mainly collects film and video. Lushan from China, whose family arguably collects architecture, if you look at it from that perspective.
Work,
Lots
so
of commission
how
work.
do you pair up the artist and the collector? That's like also kind of a very crucial thing for the success of the event.
Well, we ran two different types of programs. So one program was specifically called Collecting as Practice, and what that program was based around was looking at the philosophy, the politics, and the psychology of collecting. So all the artists were also interrogating issues around collecting within their artistic practice. Or they're interrogating institutions and critiquing institutions about, let's say, post-colonial collections. So the artists and the collectors shared an ideology or an approach about thinking about and questioning collections. That was one program. Another program was just bringing collectors alongside artists. So less matchmaking and just having shared practices that would sometimes be complementary and sometimes be in conflict.
So you are the one who's kind of pairing up, or is there a kind of speed dating process going on first, and then, or you just like, okay, what about this artist and this collector?
Well, the artist and the collector don't meet until the residency. So just like we select artists for our residency program, we have been selecting collectors. So instead of doing studio visits with artists, I've done home visits with collectors. So I've gone to their homes, dug in their closets, looked around, see how they live. First of all, it's kind of understand, are they going to be, will they be relaxed in terms of living with artists? Do they have relationships with artists? But also trying to get a sense of, are they a prima donna or not? Do they
have to kind of necessarily already in a collector-artist relationship? Like the collector already have worked?
No, not necessarily. In fact, it's been better if there hasn't been that kind of relationship. There's been a few times when there's been...
So there's brand dating.
In a way. But also, I mean, we do really think of the artists and the collectors together, but also as individuals. So some of the collectors are on their own journey during the residency. They have their own program while they're there. So they're meeting other institutions, they're meeting other collectors. They're talking about their practice as a collector. And then sometimes at night, they're just having a meeting up, with the artist. Sometimes it is a relationship that's forged together and then residence together. For example, there was an artist, Dason Gilbert and Pedro Barbosa, who knew each other before the residency. And in fact, Pedro, for the last 5 years, has supported residencies at Delfina. We then extended him an invitation as a resident. So we kind of flipped the situation on him. And at the same time, he said, I'd love to have someone like Dason Gilbert in residence. Because we've been in discussions about my collection, about sharing the collection, and it's been really challenging conversations. I'd like to continue those at Delfina.
But then, collectors are also busy people. Is it kind of demanding to ask them to take out 1 week or 2 weeks or even 1 month of their time and then, to do this residence program?
Well, look, Selena, it's up to them. Do they want to invest in their careers?
How do you convince them? How do you convince them? What is your trick?
I think the trick is really trying to demonstrate to them how special what the thing is that they're doing. And how I think it's really beneficial for the whole art world at large to know more about it, or for London audiences to know about it. So it's a little bit of ego stroking at first, you know, to kind of, you're special, you're amazing. But then also a little bit of actually, you're at a time now in your career as a collector where you may need to reflect more on what you're doing. And on your role in the whole
you have a
ecosystem.
problem right now.
No, yes, well, you have a problem. Some has been actually,
Let's do a book camp.
and some has been bring your opportunity to us, bring the thing that you're trying to develop to us, and let us bring together a peer group around you of other collectors, artists, you know, curators, help you think through kind of this particular period. So for each collector, it's been very different. Just like each artist residency for us is very different. We're part of the same methodology to both.
How do you take care of them when they arrive? Do you have to be the person who's the nanny or who is
just like the artist?
viewer?
There's no difference. There's no difference.
No difference.
But we really pride ourselves at Delfina at having at really giving a lot of pastoral care to our residents. So for collectors, we do give a little bit. We provide a little bit more hand-holding, and I'll tell you why. Because collectors aren't used to doing residencies. They may be used to funding residencies, not.
Exactly.
So therefore, they're looking at every minute of the day in a very different way than an artist would. An artist would just sit in the studio, or would read, or would go to a museum. And for a collector, it's slightly different because they're giving you, or they're giving themselves, let's say this really valued time of 1 to 2 weeks or 3 weeks at the most.
And at the end of all these programs, are you going to publish a kind of guideline, a handbook for collectors?
Well, it's interesting what you say, because I think there probably isn't no handbook. And this is the thing I've learned the most, is that there's so many individuals forging their own way, doing amazing projects. But at the same time, I think that putting them in dialogue with others is A, going to help them kind of learn more, but also B, inspire others. So it's like it is a two-way exchange between this. But we would like to publish something, maybe not a guide to collecting, but maybe just the stories, the journeys of each of them, and do so in a very different way. There's a lot of books about collecting, about collectors, and a lot is about like the egos of collectors, about like, oh, the powerless and this stuff. And it's never really about the power that actually collectors can wield, rather than the power that we often give them because they have so much money and they can buy stuff.
And put it into good use.
Exactly. So with the residencies, I think it's been about trying to work with collectors to kind of understand that they have a very crucial role in the ecosystem of the arts. And it's not just the buying power. It's not just the financial value of what they acquire. It's a social value of these objects, so what they mean to others.
It's not all about their ego, but also the give and take, the contributions they can bring to the art ecology.
Absolutely. That's it.
So one of the questions is like, is there any collector that you would definitely not inviting to your residence?
Oh, do they name names? Do you guys want names? Okay. I would not say so. But I'll tell you this. Collectors who are solely speculators, I think, aren't going to be comfortable in residence at Delfina because we have a very critical audience.
It's a very reflective residency program,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, but at the same time, I'm kind of curious about bringing in someone who only sees art as a financial value and seeing actually if them being in residence, living alongside artists, being challenged by their peers would help to kind of shift their appreciation kind of art.
Perspective.
I don't know. But I think
Try.
for us, we should try. I mean, maybe it's the next stage. But first, I think we
Try.
have to work with those who we think can be inspiring to those speculators. Let's put it that way.
So far, what is the kind of craziest thing that you would do with collectors? Because you hang out a lot with collectors, not just for this residence project, but you have been in the art industry for a decade, more than a decade. And what is the experience? What is the craziest thing?
What is the craziest thing? There's been a quite interesting few rides. There's been a lot of vodka shots with some of them, particularly Luba Mikhailova from the Ukraine, who loved to kind of plow us with vodka during her residency.
How many can you take before you got drunk?
And always like amidst dancing. So I studied dance.
And yeah, a lot of
I love to
parties.
dance. Yes.
And you have a background in dance as well.
I do, yeah. And I love to
Show
dance.
us all your move.
Okay, why not?
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's do it.
A little bit.
A little bit. You want to do some dancing?
Can you do it? I'm not a collector. I don't know if you would entertain me.
If you would, we'll do some improv together. Would that make sense? I mean, I'm also kind of out of practice. I do more. I often say to people. No, I often say to people, I have a socially engaged
I'm
dance
signing up for
practice.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Let's do
okay.
it. Yeah. So who's gonna start this?
You're the professional.
So you're gonna come around me. I'll start, and then you kind of come around me,
Okay.
right? Yeah. Okay, fine. Yeah. No, I'm just gonna do some.
I was Cezar, Delfina Foundation. I don't know what we were doing.
It was great.
Do you want
Was
to
it great?
look at it and maybe you have to redo it?
Yeah. Should we look at it again? I don't want to see it again.
Me neither.
Just leave it.